The movie begins with a girl named Jonah
wandering through the deserts. Soon, she passes out due to severe dehydration. A traveling Chinese family finds her later and takes her to the nearby town of Bismuth. After Joanna is nursed back to health, she is sold to the owner of a brothel named Frank. He appears to be a greedy and dangerous individual who can go to any lengths to please his customer. One day, a drunk customer takes interest in Joanna, but Sally quickly persuades him to spend the night with her. The man accepts, but only on the condition that Joanna will watch them. Later, during the session, the man gets increasingly aggressive and starts beating Sally up. He then turns to Joanna, and this is when Sally makes the difficult decision to shoot him dead. As a result of her actions, she's publicly hanged the next several years later, and we see that Joanna has become an adult. She is now one of the popular escorts of the brothel. Joanna spends most of her time with her best friend Elizabeth. They dream of escaping this wretched city. One day, a man tries to harass Elizabeth, and she responds by biting his tongue. Unfortunately, this is a huge offense for Frank, and he punishes the poor woman by cutting out her tongue. This makes her mute, and she is now forced to communicate in sign language. Regardless, this doesn't deter Elizabeth from her dream of escaping the city and living a peaceful life. One day, the two friends go to a matchmaker who mentions that a man named Eli is willing to marry Elizabeth. Just as they are about to leave, a wealthy customer buys all the escorts for the night. He is none other than the Reverend. That night, despite having all the escorts to himself, he only calls Joanna to his room. He claims that he is beyond salvation, but he is here to save her. It's assaulting her mercilessly. Elizabeth hears the commotion from the other room, so she quickly arrives to help her friend. Unfortunately, the Reverend stabs her to death. He then proceeds to do the same to Joanna, but she manages to slash his throat with the same knife. After this, she dresses up Elizabeth as herself and sets her body on fire. Later, Joanna goes to a doctor to get her tongue cut out. When he hesitates, she does it herself. She then gets on a carriage and sets off for Eli's home, disguising herself as Elizabeth. Earlier, in a surprising turn of events, the Reverend is revealed to be none other than Joanna's father. He is a dishonorable and wicked man who regularly beats his wife Anna. One day, Joanna spots blood on her clothes and thinks that she is sick. However, her mom makes her understand that this is very normal for girls her age. As the two are chatting, the Reverend spots them from a distance and learns what's going on. He seems to have developed a weird attraction towards his own daughter. One day, Joanna finds two injured men, John and Wolf, outside her barn. They appear to be the remaining survivors of a conflict. Seeing them so desperate for help, Joanna secretly hides them inside her barn. She also feeds them and gives them medicine to heal. As the days pass, she develops a good relationship with John. However, Wolf only tries to flirt with her. John then reveals to her that he and Wolf are not friends. In fact, the latter will not hesitate to kill him when he gets fully well. So, John hatches a plan and kills the man first while he is taking a dump. Guy's got shit luck. In the meantime, the Reverend takes his wife to a blacksmith and designs a special instrument to cover her mouth. He says this is a punishment for her actions. This leaves poor Anna feeling humiliated, as she isn't even allowed to speak from now on. The following day at the church, while the Reverend is giving one of his BS speeches, she suddenly commits the unthinkable. Despite this, the Reverend doesn't feel bad for her, and instead says that she deserved it. Now that Anna has an instrument around her face, when she resists and screams for help, John arrives and confronts the Reverend. He tries to shoot him, but the latter easily counters and shoots him dead. After this, the Reverend drags his daughter and whips her for befriending a stranger. When he gets tired and falls asleep, Joanna runs away from the house. Begins after the first one ended. Joanna and her children are riding through the snowy terrain, desperate to reach Eli's father's house. But unfortunately, along the way, the Reverend catches up to them and kills Matthew. Joanna is shattered, but she doesn't have the time to mourn, so she continues on her way. After a while, she finally reaches her father-in-law's house and explains the entire scenario to him. The old man breaks down in tears after learning that his son and grandson are dead. While Joanna grabs her gun and decides to keep guard outside, she soon spots the Reverend in the dark and shoots at him, but he appears to be elusive. He tries to intimidate her by saying gruesome things from the dark. He also says that she made a mistake by leaving her daughter alone. Hearing this, Joanna rushes inside the house, only to find her father-in-law dead. Terrified, she tries to escape with her daughter, but the evil Reverend captures them. In the next scene, we see that the two have been tied to separate poles. The Reverend approaches Sam and whips her numerous times. As Joanna watches in horror, he claims that he is a man beyond salvation, so he can do anything he wants. Breaks her arms and sets herself free. She then grabs a lantern and throws it towards her father, setting him on fire. Now that he is incapacitated, Joanna shoots him at point-blank range, finally killing him. The scene then cuts to several months later, and we see that the mother and daughter are living a peaceful life. Joanna has started a sawmill at her late father-in-law's house. Some of her relatives are helping her out in her business. Unfortunately, trouble once again manages to find Joanna, this time in the form of Nathan. One day, he arrives with his men, revealing himself to be the new sheriff in town. He then displays a poster of Elizabeth, who is apparently wanted for killing the brothel owner, Frank. Hearing this, Joanna realizes that during that fateful night, Elizabeth had actually killed Frank before coming to her aid. Poor Joanna is then arrested and taken away in a ship. As she sails away, she notices Sam happily playing with one of her relatives. This provides her with some relief, as the Reverend is no longer around to torment her daughter. Joanna then takes one final look at Sam before committing the unthinkable. Several years later, we see that Sam has grown into a woman. She has a daughter of her own and runs the sawmill. Despite losing her mother at an early age, she says that she can still feel her.
Thank you for watching.
Around.
Like and subscribe for more.